The smoke of conquest still lingered over the charred expanse once called the Reachway, a heat haze shimmering above blackened earth where fields of golden wheat had bowed mere days before. Horses refused to graze on the ashes, and men who had marched beside green banners now knelt in silent terror, their armor warped by dragonfire into grotesque shapes that would never fit man nor memory again. Above the desolation, 3 vast shadows wheeled in lazy spirals, easy as seabirds on an updraft. Though nothing about them was gentle, scales the hue of midnight, molten brass, and pale moonlit silver all caught the late Dogsummer sun, each glittering movement proclaiming that the Targaryen host remained astride the sky as surely as it held the ground. Aegon of House Targaryen, first of his name but lately hailed as Aegon the Conqueror, watched from the saddle of Balerion as embers drifted past like winter snowflakes. The black dread's breaths came slow and rumbling, each exhalation stirring red sparks that glowed and died in a heartbeat. Aegon's own breath was shallower. He smelled scorched flesh still, and a faint copper tang that would not lift from his tongue. Yet in his chest bloomed a solemn certainty. The 7 kingdoms were half won already, and the remainder would fall as surely as the sun would sink beyond the sunset sea. What lord, seeing such ruin, would dare rise against him now that Balerion, Vhagar, and Meraxes had survived unscathed? That truth reverberated through the ranks below. Knights of the Westerlands, stripped of sigils, had been formed into lines to receive pardon or punishment. No sword rested easy in a lordly hand this day. Orys Baratheon strode among them in battered plate, cloak torn, a lion pelt draped across it as a trophy. He turned each helm upward, meeting eyes dulled by fear, then gestured to the Conqueror when one seemed worthy of a second chance. Visenya's sharp gaze followed from atop Vhagar, her hand resting on the gold-worked hilt of Dark Sister. Rhaenys, half afire with lingering battle zeal, perched upon Meraxes and hummed some ancient Valyrian song, a lullaby that this day sounded more like a funeral dirge. The crackle of ruined banners teased Aegon's ear, and Balerion's wings stilled. A hush settled, thin and brittle. Even the wind appeared cowed. Aegon guided the black dread lower, letting the dragon's vast shadow drown the remnants of House Gardener's proud army. Where lords had stood, only kneelers remained. The thick boot of conquest pressed invisible yet immense upon every spine. Orys approached, helm tucked under one arm. "There will be no more resistance here, brother," he said, low. Sweat filmed his brow, leaving pale streaks through soot. "The Reach is broken. Its king burned. Mayhaps even the land remembers." Aegon's eyes, violet and unreadable, surveyed the bleak horizon. "The land will remember mercy as well, if we offer it now." His voice carried, pitched for the waiting host. "But first I would hear the words of those who still possess courage enough to speak." He pointed toward a cluster of prisoners, high-born men in scorched silks, their fine chain ripped by heat, standing apart from the foot soldiers. Among them was Laurent Lannister, hair singed but eyes bright with desperate calculation. Beside him slumped Gorman Hightower, bearing a makeshift sling where his sword arm had been blistered to uselessness. They stood because they could not run, yet pride clung to them like smoke. Aegon dismounted. The earth hissed under Balerion's claw as molten stones cooled in the dragon's wake. When the Conqueror reached Laurent, he saw hate wrestling with awe in the young lion's gaze. "You marched beneath Gardener banners," Aegon said, voice soft but sword as sharp. "Their king is Ash. Who then leads the West?" "Bannermule," Laurent swallowed. "Casterly Rock will never bow while my father lives." Rhaenys drifted near on Meraxes, silver wings beating in languid strokes that scattered dust. "Your father's breath is not so long as my dragon's fire," she said, a playful softness masking steel. "Would you carry that message to him, or shall I?" Laurent's shoulders tensed. He looked at the ruin around him, at the impossible sky realm still ruled by the Targaryen. 3. "If I ride," he said, voice breaking, "may it be beneath a banner of truce." Aegon inclined his head. "Ride. Speak truth. The field of fire has not broken our dragons. They soar, unbloodied, stronger with each victory. Tell your father that Aegon Targaryen offers peace to the west, so long as he bends the knee and names me king of all. Should he refuse, he will look up to find the sky aflame. Nand. Laurent's pride buckled. He bowed, quick and stiff, before stumbling away under guard. Others watched, hearts hammering at throats. Hightower's turn came next. The maester tending him shrank aside as Aegon stepped forward. Old Town is far from these fields, the Conqueror began. Yet its ships have ferried men and grain to the Reach. Its bells preach unity. What does the Hightower desire? Gorman Hightower's mouth quivered. My father, Leighton, is a cautious man. The Citadel whispers in every ear. They will weigh our fates like coin on a scale. Aegon clasped the knight's uninjured shoulder. Then carry them this coin. He gestured upward. In answer, Vhagar's roar tore the sky, making horses rear and men flinch. No maester's chain is strong enough to bind a dragon. Tell them the choice. Chain yourselves to a dragon throne, or be ground beneath its wings. Memo. Gorman nodded, tears drying raw salt on his cheeks. When he staggered back, Orys released a breath. You show leniency, yet they taste only terror. Is that your intent? Aegon's expression softened a fraction. Terror can be tempered into obedience, but only mercy can forge loyalty. He looked toward Visenya, whose stern profile cut against the burnt horizon. We will give them both, that neither may be forgotten. The sisters drew close, dragons settling in a half-circle about their brother. Colossal sentries guarding a single king. Rhaenys leaned down. The Stormlords gather in the east, so the ravens say. They see to the smoke of the Reach and wonder if they are next. Visenya pushed back a stray strand of silver hair. Let them wonder. Her smile was thin, assured. Our dragons still hunger. Aegon's gaze drifted skyward as if he could see through distance to Storm's End's massive drum towers, to the proud Dornish deserts beyond, to the north snows lying quiet beneath a summer sun. All the realms waited, uncertain whether to flee or fight. His jaw set. We will fly soon, but not merely to burn. We must show the shape of the new world we mean to build. Unbroken skies belong to House Targaryen. Below, soldiers began to dismantle makeshift pyres, stamping out lingering flames. Some looked up, half expecting the dragons to unleash further ruin. Instead, they witnessed the three mighty beasts folding wings, settling like roosting mountain peaks. The message was clear. The storm had passed, for now. Night crept upon the field in shades of ink and scarlet. Campfires ringed the dragons but dared not press too near. Within the Conqueror's pavilion, a council formed. Worn maps lay spread across a battered oak table, the ink of rivers and roads smudged by travel and sweat. Aegon bent over them while Rhaenys reclined upon a heap of crimson cushions, legs crossed, goblet of arbor red in hand. Visenya remained standing, arms folded, ever sentinel, the pale length of Dark Sister's blade resting against her knee. Orys Baratheon spoke first. Storm's End could be ours by moon's turn. My lords have sent ravens. They say Argilaca's daughter seeks to rally his bannermen, yet the Storm King himself is slain. Slain, yet not forgotten, Rhaenys murmured. Stormlanders hold their grudges close. Her eyes sparkled with memory of the Argilac she had sighted on a distant battlement. Axe aloft, refusing yield even as Balerion's fire shattered his walls. They will make songs of his death, songs that beg for vengeance. Visenya traced a line on the map from Blackwater Rush to the rain-lashed shore. Songs fade when throats are scorched, she said. The council fell silent at the chill in her words. But Aegon lifted a hand. Yet if we offer them a queen instead, young, brave, of royal Argilaca's blood, perhaps their throats will sing our praise. He looked to Orys. You captured Harrenhal for me. Will you wed the Stormlands for me as well? The bastard of Dragonstone stiffened, eyes widening. You mean to grant me Argella? Aegon's smile was small but genuine. A Targaryen may place Baratheon upon Storm's End's throne. A dragon lord's might bound to a storm lord's courage. Such union will steady the realm. Rhaenys laughed softly. And spare us the dull chore of another siege. Oris glanced at Visenya. Her expression gave no hint. Slowly he nodded. If Argella bends, I will wed her. But she is proud, some say prouder than her father. Pride is the armor of the defeated. Aegon answered, it cracks under the weight of hope. We will bring her hope of peace and wings to guard it. Visenya's fingers tapped the table thrice. And if she refuses hope? Rhaenys lifted her goblet. Then she will learn despair. But let us offer gentleness first. She sipped. For once. Aegon's mind, however, wandered further east, beyond Shipbreaker Bay to the Stepstones and the dusty Dornish marches. Reports spoke of Prince Namor Martell's quiet mobilization. The Desert Kingdom had not yet declared for or against the Conqueror, but spies wrote of catapults manned at every mountain pass, of sand-sunk pitfalls waiting for dragon talons. Unlike the Reach or Westerlands, Dorne could not match Targaryen dragons in open field. Yet they had defeated kings by refusing to fight where dragons could land. They bled invaders slowly, like venomous snakes. Aegon's brow furrowed. Rhaenys saw. You fear for me, she said, voice soft. I know Dorne draws me as the sea draws River Rune's currents. Their princes and princesses ride sand steeds and sleep beneath stars. Freedom is their birthright. They will not yield, unless they are shown wonder rather than ruin. Aegon's eyes warmed. Merax's is wonder incarnate. But even wonder may be slain by a well-placed bolt. I would not risk you. She rose, setting goblet aside, and placed her palm upon his cheek. You risk all of us whenever you mount Balerion. We three were born to ride danger and befriend it. Yet we are not children of chance. We are shapers of fate. The sky belongs to our house, because we never cower from its storms. Neminharu. Visenya regarded the exchange with practiced neutrality, yet Aegon knew her heart beat the same cadence. They were one soul in three bodies, as the tales claimed a Valyrian trinity. At length, he lifted his hand atop Rhaenys. Then let us craft fate carefully. We strike Storm's End first. We bind the Storm Lords with marriage and mercy. Dorne may watch, and when they see Dragonsteel hammered into peace, they may reconsider bloodshed. Nansen. Oris exhaled, half relief, half anticipation. I will ride at dawn. A small host, a single dragon overhead, banners of truce high. Argella may hate it, but she will hear me. Tell her, Visenya said, that the sky will remain dark until she answers. Should she delay, dusk shall bring fire. The council adjourned. Torches flickered at the pavilion's entrance, throwing elongated shadows that danced like silent wraiths. Aegon stepped into night, eyes drawn skyward yet again. Above, the stars blazed bright behind thin clouds. Their cold light, answering the embers still glowing across the field of fire. In that juxtaposition, he saw the twin faces of his reign. Destruction and illumination, terror and mercy, each feeding the other. Balerion shifted nearby, heavy tail smashing a cart already half burned. The dragon's growl was a living mountain rumbling beneath its skin. Aegon touched his flank, feeling heat seep into his palm, a warmth at once comforting and cautionary. We fly east soon, he whispered. The world will grow small beneath our wings. Balerion's only reply was a low, thunderous purr, as though he understood well that all horizons would someday fall beneath him. 3 days later, the dragon banners approached Storm's End. Sea winds roared across jagged cliffs where white foam exploded against stone, and cloud banks rolled overhead, gray as hammered iron. Oris Baratheon rode at the column's head, a plain cloak hiding the lion pelt now exchanged for a new device, a crowned stag, or as close as the camp stitchers could craft in haste, signaling both victory and intent. Above, Vhagar circled, each beat of her wings scattering gulls and frightened flocks. Argella Durrandon, styling herself Storm Queen since her father's death, had fortified the ancient drum towers with fresh oaken palisades and siege scorpions aimed at the sky. Yet when Vhagar's shadow fell, bowmen quailed and scorpion crews flinched behind shields. Dragons provoked primal memory, older than castles or oaths. On the causeway before the massive gates she appeared. Tall, auburn-haired, clad in silver half-plate, chased with lightning bolts. The rain that began as Oris dismounted plastered her locks to her brow, but could not cool the fire in her gaze. Oris approached alone, helm removed, sword sheathed, palms bare, a gesture taught by the Targaryen sisters. Yet his voice rang clear over wind. Argella, daughter of Argilac, last of the Durrandon line, I come with an offer of peace. She laughed, short as thunder. Peace? My father's bones are still warm. Your dragons roasted him alive. Oris bowed his head. I mourn him. He fought with a king's courage. But courage in defeat need not doom his people. Bend the knee to Aegon Targaryen. Storm's End will keep its honor. And I will take you to wife, giving Durrandon blood new life alongside my own. House Baratheon shall carry your storm forward. None. Rain spattered her steel, dripping from her jaw. You? She spat. A bastard with a lion's hide for cloak. He let the insult stand. A bastard, aye, but a loyal one, and brother to your conqueror. Better to share my cloak than shroud your kingdom in flames. Behind her the gates groaned, as though echoing her anger. She stalked closer, halting when Vhagar's roar rolled across the battlements. For an instant, fear flickered, then it vanished. I will never marry the man who carries my father's severed hand as sigil. Oris's own hand twitched near his hilt, remembering Argilaca's gauntlet, offered in futile defiance months ago. He exhaled. No more severed hands, I swear. Only joined ones. Sweet words, she said, stepping back. Yet storms are deaf to sweetness. She turned. Oris saw the moment slipping, the chance to avert another siege dissolving in cold spray. He called out, louder, so all on the walls might hear. Then know this. Dragons will bathe these cliffs in fire before moonrise. Your people will die screaming under rockfall and flame. Their lifeblood will stain the tide pools crimson. But you, Argella, will live. You will be carried to Aegon in chains, and whether you wear a crown or a prisoner's collar will be your choosing now. The rain redoubled, as though the very sky wept at the ultimatum. Argella paused halfway to the gate. She did not look back, but her reply rode the wind. Bring your fire, Oris Baratheon. Storms break ships, they can break dragons too. In. The portcullis slammed behind her. A scorpion bolt launched skyward, crude and futile, arcing nowhere near Vhagar. Yet, the gesture declared war. Oris stared at the closed gate, water running off his nose. His jaw set. He turned to the watchers on the parapets. You have seen your queen refuse mercy, he shouted. At sunset the sky will burn. Choose how you wish to die, or live. He remounted, wheeled his destroyer, and spurred back through muddy ruts toward camp, the mocking screech of gulls following like errant spirits. In the command pavilion pitched beyond Storm's End's walls, Aegon listened without interruption as Oris recounted. He sat upon a plain wooden chair, gauntlets off, fingers steepled. Visenya paced, restless energy vibrating through her tall frame. Rhaenys watched Oris with curious, almost sympathetic eyes. When the tale ended, silence stretched. Rain drummed on canvas overhead. At last Aegon spoke. She is young, frightened, and cornered. Cornered prey bites hardest, but it breaks fastest too. He stood, crossing to a barrel that served as makeshift table, gazing at the flicker of torchlight on patched leather walls. We will strike at dusk, not full fury, but enough to crumble her pride. Vhagar will scorch the outer palisade only, Balerion the gatehouse. Meraxes will carry me to the walls to speak once more. Give her a second chance when her courage falters. Visenya's eyes narrowed. Mercy again. Each act of gentleness is a blade turned from a kill. One day it may find our back. Perhaps, he allowed. But blades given in mercy may become shields wielded for us. Rhaenys rose, excitement playing across her lips. I will carry you, she said. Let the Storm Queen see the Conqueror aloft on Meraxes, tempered by a queen's restraint. Visenya sighed, but nodded. Oris bowed. Give me leave to gather her small folk. If they flee to our camp before the assault, the enemy's conscience may crack faster than its walls." Aegon clapped his shoulder. "Go. Make it so." Dusk came, painting cloud bottoms bruised purple. The sea churned iron gray, and wind carried salt spray into the dragon's nostrils as they rose from the cliff camp. 3 titans filled the stormy sky, their bellies aglow with inner furnace, wings tipping into the coastal gale. Below, the Targaryen banners clung to their poles, snapping like captive thunder. Balerion ascended higher than the others, vast wings flattening the gusts. From his back, Visenya guided the Black Dread toward the besieged gatehouse. She wore no crown, only the iron circlet of a warrior queen. But her posture screamed sovereignty. Vagar trailed, flame flickering between her jaws, and Meraxes bore Aegon and Rhaenys together, a duo of royal silhouettes against roiling cloud. Storm's End's defenders loosed quarrels and arrows that vanished beneath the dragon's armored hides like toothpicks flung at boulders. Aegon spoke Valyrian words long enough to shape destiny, yet short enough to be drowned by rain. Meraxes glided lower. Balerion unleashed a brief, searing cone of black fire upon the timber breastwork. Wood erupted in hissing sheets, but stone remained unscarred. The message, destruction held in leash. Vagar followed with a curtain of orange flame across the outer palisade. Wooden stakes kindled, filling the air with resin smoke. Yet again, stone bastions stood untouched. Within minutes, heat rolled over battlements, water sizzling on burning wood. Argella's men doused flames in frantic lines, but the smell of charred defenses curled into their lungs and minds. Arrows clattered to muddy courtyard tiles. Bowstrings slackened as men gaped skyward. Aegon guided Meraxes to hover a spear's length beyond the walls. Rain turned to steam against the dragon's scales. From the saddle, he raised his voice, carried by wind and terror alike. "Stormlanders, your queen's courage is great, yet courage should guard her people, not blind them. Look upon your walls, they still stand. I have spared them, but if I must breach them, I will do so with sorrow and finality. Will you see your houses reduced to cinders because of pride? Or will you claim peace and honor?" Across the burning palisade, Argella appeared atop the gate tower, hair whipping across her face. She leaned over the parapet, eyes blazing. "Will you trade honor for chains?" Aegon answered, "I offer a crown of equal weight, forged anew from fire and storm. Bend and rule beside a husband who respects your lineage." The wind howled, carrying away his words, yet she heard. For a moment her shoulders slumped, emotion almost invisible but telling. She looked behind her, perhaps at huddled small folk, or the maester murmuring grim casualty math. She raised her voice. "Swear upon your dragons that Storm's End will keep its ancient laws, that no lord shall be taken hostage, no sept burned, no child made ward against their parents' will." "I so swear," Aegon called, voice ringing with the force of oath. "By Balerion, Vagar, and Meraxes, I vow it." A hush fell heavy, even the rain eased. Argella lifted her chin. "Then I bend the knee." And she did before all, one knee, scraping wet stone. Around her, knights followed, some weeping, some dropping blades clattering to flagstones. A tide of surrender swept the walls. Meraxes landed within the courtyard, stone cracking beneath her talons. Aegon slid from the saddle, boots splashing. Argella rose, face pale but unbowed. Aegon extended his hand. After a heartbeat's pause, she placed hers upon it. In that clasp, the storm broke. Clouds parted above, revealing a sliver of setting sun gilding shattered battlements with gold. From beyond the walls, camped small folk cheered faintly, unsure what surrender sounded like but knowing, at last, that fire would not devour them tonight. So fell the Stormlands, not to ruinous fire but to tempered flame. Yet news of that tempered flame raced northward and south, carried by ravens and trembling tongues. In King's Landing's muddy streets it echoed as rumor and prophecy. At Old Town it arrived as curdled fear wrapped in maesters' sealed letters. And in Dorne's sun-baked courts, spies whispered that dragons had not lost a single scale across 3 major campaigns. The field of fire had failed to bleed them. Storm's End had failed to break them. An unbroken air force, 3 dragons strong, now girded half the realm. Prince Nemor Martell read such reports from a shaded balcony overlooking Ghost Hill's red sands. He sipped chilled wine, savoring it like a man savoring his last cool breeze before a sirocco. "They fly still," he murmured to his daughter, Princess Dyria. "They will come, and we will face the sky with only the ground beneath us." Dyria's eyes were bright as sunset flint. "Ground can swallow dragons if shaped by cunning. Cunning against fire," Nymor mused, tapping the scroll. "We must learn the shape of their mercy. If we know where it yields, we may force it to break." He reached for a second scroll, still sealed. "But first, we measure how deep that mercy runs. I will write to Aegon, offer parley at Vaith. Let us weigh words before spears." Dyria tilted her head, a single sleek braid sliding over one shoulder. "Words are spears, father, if thrown true." Her smile glimmered, sharp, promising. Far to the north in Winterfell's great hall, Lord Torrhen Stark studied similar missives. Candlelight flickered on his gray eyes as he paced before the wolf-skin chair of his forefathers. Around him, bannermen murmured of Dragon's immunity, of Reach and Stormlands fallen. Torrhen's brother, Brandon Snow, leaned close. "We can raise every sword in the north, but we cannot raise wings." Torrhen's fingers tightened around the ancient sword ice. "Then we will raise wisdom instead." In that distant hall, a decision began to kindle, one that would ripple across ages yet to come. The dragons rested on Storm's End's inner bailey, the scent of burning pine still curling from their nostrils. Campfires filled courtyards once reserved for tourneys. Knights of opposing banners now drank cautiously from the same kegs, comparing burns and boasts. Oris and Argella walked the curtain walls arm in arm, every pair of eyes tracking them with curiosity and relief in equal measure. Their wedding, promised at dawn, would seal peace in parchment and blood. Within a candlelit solar overlooking the moon-silvered sea, Aegon and his sisters stood alone, the night breeze billowing gauzy drapes. Map markers had been shifted again. The Reach and Stormlands lay beneath Targaryen symbols. The Westerlands awaited word. Only 3 realms remained openly defiant: the North, the Vale, and Dorne. Yet the unspoken truth lingered heavier than any banner. Their dragons yet lived. Aegon rested a hand upon the sill, feeling the cool stone beneath his palm. "If Balerion falls, we fall," he said softly. "No," Visenya answered, stepping close. "If Balerion falls, it will mean dragons may die. But thus far, they have not. We have shown the world the might of an unbroken sky. Our enemies stare upward in dread. Until they witness a dragon's death, that dread shall hold them hostage." Diwetumna. Rhaenys joined them, her laughter gentle. "Then let them gaze skyward forever. Our reign shall be scripted in stars and wings." Yet beyond their words simmered the knowledge that men, given time, might yet learn how to kill dragons. The Field of Fire had not taught them. Storm's End had not. But men were clever, driven by fear and desperation. There would be bolts tipped with rare metals, poisons for dragon feed, perhaps sorcerous rites dredged from Shadowlands. Aegon knew this as clearly as he felt the pulse in his wrist. For now, though, the 3-headed dragon sigil flew unmarred, dragons breathing, wings strong. The world whispered in smoky taverns and sunlit courts alike that the Conqueror's beasts were invincible. And such whispers loosened swords from hands, bent knees to thrones, bound once rival houses together beneath a single monarch's flame-lit banner. Aegon gazed out into the dark seas, hearing the distant crash of waves. Somewhere beyond that horizon lay the free cities, already sending envoys with gilded gifts to please the new overlord of Westeros. Perhaps even the old goat of Qarth would send silks. Perhaps Volantis would beg for alliances. The thought amused him. Then he pictured Dorne's red mountains, the Vale's soaring spires, Winterfell's snow-dust rooftops beneath swirling sky. Ahead simmered blood and sweat and tears. Yet behind him, the Field of Fire's charred earth still glowed faintly in memory. Dragons unbroken, realms bending, a king's dominion rising like sunrise over endless plains. He closed his eyes. In that darkness, he heard Balerian's wings beating, not once or twice but through all the years to come, the pulse of empire echoing with every thunderous flap. And he knew, with a certainty deeper than bone, that so long as those wings endured, his reign would stretch across centuries like a shadow cast by a creature too vast for the mind to hold. A knock sounded soft at the solar door. Aegon turned. A boy entered, shivering with nerves, carrying parchment still damp from waxed audio. "A raven from Casterly Rock, your grace," he stammered. Rhaenys took it, eyes scanning, her lips curved into a slow smile. She passed it to Aegon. He read, "Loren Lannister offers to meet at the Golden Tooth and discuss terms," he said. Visenya arched a brow. "Discuss or surrender? Time will reveal," Aegon murmured. "Yet dragons hasten men's wisdom." He folded the parchment, tucking it into his belt. The sisters joined him at the window once more. The sea glimmered under a half-drowned moon. The wind carried distant laughter from soldiers newly spared. Somewhere below, dragons slumbered, breaths rumbling like subterranean thunder. Above them all spread the night sky, vast, dark, unbroken. Rain had given way to a restless dawn. The sky bruised violet along the eastern rim, as though reluctant to surrender the night's hush. Campfires guttered in the courtyards of Storm's End, casting long, uncertain shadows across stones slick with salt and spent fear. Within the temporary encampment erected for parley, Aegon Targaryen sat alone at a rough-hewn trestle table, tracing slow circles upon the rim of a bronze wine cup. The bitter vintage had gone sweet as he stared into it, lost in contemplations better suited to poets than conquerors. The strange taste of triumph, at once intoxicating and weightless, as though he had merely drunk smoke. He felt Rhaenys approach before her soft boots whispered across the reed mats that lined the pavilion floor. She set her hand upon his shoulder, steady and warm, the way a harbor lantern steadies a sailor's mind. "You did not sleep," she said, making it less a question than a tender accusation. Aegon turned the cup twice more, then set it away. "Sleep would have drowned the echoes," he murmured. "I wanted to hear them, the voices of those who surrendered, the silence of those who died, the caution of those yet to rise against us." She squeezed once before sliding onto the bench beside him. "Echoes fade, my love. We shape new sounds in their place." He studied her profile, the slight upturn of her nose that gave her expression perpetual mischief, the opalescent gleam of her eyes when dawn touched them. "And what of the sounds we cannot shape? The north stirs with old oaths, the vale hides behind stone wings of its own. Dorne remains the single realm never bent beneath a dragon. Mexin." Her laugh was low, melodic. "Not all songs are meant to be sung at once. Let us finish the verse before us. The Westerlands." She reached for the sealed scroll Loren Lannister had dispatched. "He has asked for safe conduct to the Golden Tooth. He writes that Casterly Rock will consider terms." "Consider," Aegon echoed. The word tasted of half-raw iron. Yet not accept. He knows his bannermen bleed coin faster than courage. Rhaenys said, "Every day the Reach stands in cinders and storms, and in uneasy peace, his coffers feel emptier. Soon pride will cost more than surrender." Visenya swept in, tall as prophecy, her mail hauberk rustling like a nest of vipers. "Spare us the counting of coppers," she snapped, though her irritation seemed aimed more at the morning than her sister. "The golden lions will not yield until they glimpse Balerion shadowing their mountain. A parley is but a lion's stretch before the leap." Rhaenys arched a brow. "What would you do, sister? Bathe the Golden Tooth in fire and call it good?" "That would be honest," Visenya replied, though a wry curl ghosted her lips. Then she relented a hand's breadth. "Yet honesty may cut deeper than gold. If we wish the lion to bend rather than break, we must let him imagine escape, until he walks into the cage himself." Aegon rose, rolling shoulders taut with encroaching purpose. "Then we ride. Orys will fortify Storm's End and temper the new alliance through marriage. The three of us must show a united sky above the Westerlands, but we need not scorch it. Let Laurent and Lauren believe they still hold the dice. Nay. He took Dark Sister from Visenya, not to wield but simply to draw a forefinger along its length. The sword's cold beauty grounding him. We will go lightly. Our dragons no more than a wing beat behind. We will speak not of ruin, but of roads rebuilt. Trade routes safer beneath one banner, gold flowing freer through a realm at peace. If the Lannisters are wise, their future will glitter brighter beneath my crown than above their crumbling walls. Natter. A hush fell as the sisters watched him, each seeing the Valyrian steel threaded through his calm. Rhaenys leaned in, brushing her lips against his in a kiss, as fleeting as a spark struck from flint. So, the road calls, she whispered. Visenya sheathed Dark Sister at her hip. And soon the sky. The journey west unfurled across hills still green where fire had not kissed them, through river valleys swollen by late summer runoff, past villages repairing thatch and hope beneath the seal of a dragon banner, streaming scarlet black overhead. The Conqueror's host traveled smaller than most would guess a king commanded. Scarcely 2,000 men. Half foot, half horse, a mobile shadow meant not for siege but for spectacle. Above them, the triad of dragons traced wide, lazy circuits, never descending low enough to frighten cattle, but always near enough that small folk halted plows and fell to knees in fields of barley gone half-harvested. Aegon rode at Column's heart. He wore no crown. Instead, a simple steel circlet rested above his brow. Gems darkened to near black in the dust of the road. Each night he dismounted among common tents, sharing watered wine with sergeants, asking names and woes. News traveled faster than ravens. The Conqueror spoke to bakers and to bowyers. His dragons spared humble holdings. His sister wives listened to camp minstrels as though lonely for songs. Soon farm wives lined the roadsides with baskets of early apples, small folk bowing as if to passing seasons rather than to passing terror. The dragon's shadows fell gentle as clouds when Aegon chose. Yet even softness had edges. 2 rusting mercenaries waylaid a supply cart. One dusk, thinking the host too dispersed. They were found next dawn, bound at wrists between Merax's talons as the white sun cracked the horizon. When Rhaenys tapped the dragon's shoulder, the pair were released to run. Her single word, fly, preceded Merax's brief plunge of flame atop a barren slope. Neither man survived the lesson, yet their charred remains burned no villages. Justice had come, swift and precise as a falcon's strike. By the time the gilded towers of the Golden Tooth rose ahead, a granite bastion commanding the only easy pass into the Westerlands, rumors had raced before the army wearing 2 faces: Aegon the Just, weighty with mercy, and Aegon the Shadow, whose dragons needed no second chance to burn. The mighty gate stood open, but flanked by knightly guards bristling with crimson cloaks. Above, white lions stitched upon scarlet banners fluttered drunkenly in the warm updraft from canyon chasms. A silver-haired envoy met the column. Sir Tylan Lannister, younger brother to Lauren, groomed to cunning like a blade honed thin. Bowing low, but never quite averting his eyes, he gestured them forward. Inside, the fortress boasted the wealth of 3 centuries. Walls inlaid with flecks of gold ore, torches couched in clawed sconces of red jasper, tapestries woven with spun electrum shimmering in torchlight. Yet there was strain behind the luxury. Hallways echoed with too few servants, and the orchard outside the East Keep had been stripped of fruit before season's crest. War chokes even the richest lion. Aegon entered the high hall beneath a vaulted ceiling carved-in likeness of a star-filled night. Lauren Lannister waited upon the dais in gilded mail, though his left pauldron bore a dent still black from the field of fire. Beside him sat his queen, Sira the Fens, her eyes sharp as mountain winter. They rose in concert, each step forward a careful measure between dignity and deference. Lauren's voice echoed through the chamber. "My lord king." Aegon inclined his head, equal parts greeting and quiet claim. "My lord of Casterly Rock." No trumpets, no heraldry's litany. A conversation between kings. They approached until only an arm's reach separated them, then paused. Lauren studied Aegon's bare steel circlet, as though suspecting the absence of jewels meant deeper designs. The moment stretched like the silence between lightning and thunder. "I have summoned you to treat," Lauren said. "Not yet to yield." "Summoned?" Visenya murmured behind Aegon. Voice soft as falling ash. Aegon lifted one palm, and she stilled, though her eyes narrowed like a drawn arrow. He addressed Lauren gently. "The invitation came from you, yet the step beyond these walls lies with me. Speak your mind." "I have weighed cost against gain," Lauren said. "Gold buys armies. Gold rebuilds walls. But gold cannot buy another life for the King of the Reach, nor can it quench dragon's flame. Thus I offer oath. The Westerlands will stand with the crown you forge, if the crown stands with our gold." A ripple passed through hall watchers. Tylan shifted near a column, eyes flickering. Aegon chose neutrality in tone. "What price?" "South trade routes must remain untaxed for 2 harvests. The Rock must retain sole right to mine gold within its borders without levies beyond 10th. And my son Joffrey will wed a daughter of your line when one is born." "No? Well?" Aegon extended silence like a measuring rod. He heard the stones of the keep settling under centuries of weight. He thought of villages burning in this canyon if dragons roared. Then he spoke. "Trade will flow freely for 1 harvest. The 10th I will grant, but a 10th in men as well as coin, should the realm require levies for defense. As for your son, his bride shall be of dragon blood. But Valyrian steel commands its own bargain. Swear fealty now. Kneel before the realm, and House Lannister will rise higher than coin alone can lift." "Nenninza." Lauren hesitated. Sarah watched him, lips parted. Tylan's brow gleamed with sweat. Aegon inhaled lightly, then added, "And the mine shafts of Casterly Rock shall be secured by Targaryen engineers, experts in stonework unknown in Westeros. Your yields will increase by a full third within a decade. That is my promise." Greed flickered in the twilight of Lauren's resolve. His hands opened, as though already feeling heavier ore. At last he dropped to one knee. "Then I, Lauren of House Lannister, do pledge fealty to Aegon Targaryen, first of his name, King of all Westeros and Shield of Men." Sarah knelt more slowly. Tylan bowed low. A hush swept the hall, soon broken by rivulet cheers rising along gold-flecked walls. When Lauren rose again, Aegon clasped his arm. "Rise not as rival, but as warden of the West," he declared, voice resounding. "Hold these passes for the realm. Guard gold not for yourself alone, but for every road that feeds the crown." And trumpets blared then, late but jubilant. Visenya allowed herself the faintest smile. Rhaenys sighed. Relief and hope braided. And beyond stone casements, Balerian's roar thundered once. A benediction of dragonfire withheld. Lauren's capitulation sent tremors down every trade road. At River Run, a river barge captain tossed coins into the water to honor Targaryen luck. In Fair Isle, fishing folk knelt upon sand at low tide, pressing salt-soaked palms to hearts as dragons swooped distant. Even in the Eyrie, that alabaster eyrie thought impregnable save to falcons. Young Lord Ronald Arryn demanded his mother Queen Regent Shara lift him high, so he might glimpse the dragons rumored to darken half the sky. She humored him, though her smile trembled at edges. While ravens flew, Aegon remained at the Golden Tooth, working transformations by parchment, rather than by flame. Under his guidance, goldsmiths fashioned new mint dies, bearing 3-headed dragon entwined with lion rampant. Coins to circulate the king's visage into every palm of the realm. Stonemasons measured canyon walls for watchtowers that would bear Targaryen torches at night, guiding caravans safely between lands newly stitched by allegiance. Rhaenys visited small mining hamlets, riding Meraxes low so children could count scales, then dismounting to share bread. She listened to pit overseers speak of collapsed shafts and dead cousins. She promised extra timbers from reach forests, dragon lifted over ridges where mules failed. Stories of the queen who walked among soot-stained workers spread like wildfire, yet sweeter, quick to ignite loyalty. Visenya, meanwhile, drilled a select cadre of Westerland knights in anti-ambush tactics, should Dornish raiders ever creep this far north. She demanded sweat, blood, and humility in equal measure, and she delivered bruises in person with a blunted spear until pride flaked from them like chipped paint. Men survived her sessions changed, some more fearful, all more focused. They named her Dark Sister as often as they named her sword. 10 days after the oath, a raven arrived from Old Town. High Septon Tommen of the Sevenfold Choir requested audience to crown Aegon, formally beneath the faith's blessing, should the king prove willing to lay aside polygamy for public optics. Aegon read the parchment 3 times. He felt faith's velvet noose tightening in the words. Then he penned reply. He would receive the High Septon at Dragonstone once the realm lay unified, not before. Until then, the faith might pray for guidance and patience. Visenya laughed openly at his letter. You give them time to hope they can sway you. Let them hope, Aegon said. Hope sweetens obedience. What if their hope sours into revolt? Then we remind them that even the Seven know fear of fire. His tone brooked no debate, and Visenya's mirth faded. Yet unknown to them all, the High Septon's reply never reached the Golden Tooth. The raven bearing it vanished amid storm-tossed clouds above the Red Mountains, lost to lightning's blind fury. Chance, or design, cut the thread, leaving possibility to fester unmonitored. With the west secured, the Targaryen host wound northeast along the river road toward Maidenpool, intention set upon the Vale, though messages raced ahead inviting Queen Shara Aran to treat at Harrenhal, once ruined crucible of dragon wrath, now rising again beneath scaffolds and Nutar roofs. Aegon preferred not to test dragon against mountain stronghold where the giant's lance met sky. Let them meet on neutral ground, he urged. Ships waited at Maidenpool to ferry half the host upriver. But as the army crossed trampled meadows near Rushmore, a delegation flagged them down, Bolton colors bleak as winter's dusk, stark direwolf quartered in courtesy. The northern party numbered fewer than 30, cloaked in pine-scented furs despite late summer heat. At their head rode Brandon Snow, bastard brother to Lord Torrhen Stark, his eyes pale as hoarfrost, his expression neither hostile nor subservient. Aegon halted the line, spurring forward on a dappled courser. Balerion angling above dipped one wing in slow caution. Rhaenys near its side watched like a hawk, poised to stoop. Brandon dismounted, planting his spear upright before him like an attending sentinel. He drew off bearskin glove, then offered the naked hand. I bring words from Winterfell. Aegon clasped it firmly. Speak. The king in the north wishes parley before more blood darkens snowless fields. He rides south with host, but seeks to treat air host meets dragonfire. 3 days hence, upon the banks of the Red Fork. A single ridge, wide enough for 2 kings and their closest. He vows peace flag will fly. Aegon's lashes half lowered, hiding thoughts. Is the north ready to yield? Brandon's lips twitched wryly. The north is ready to listen. We know what fire can do, yet we know what ice endures. Visenya drew beside them. Endures aye, but stone cracks when flames sear it long enough. Brandon faced her calmly, as though meeting winterstorm. Aegon decided, we will meet your lord. Our dragons will circle high but not strike unless provoked. Bring that assurance to Torrhen Stark. Brandon inclined head, retrieving his spear. I will bring it. Before he left, Rhaenys asked softly, tell me, what does the north whisper of our mercy? The bastard considered. Some call it weakness. More call it wisdom. He pivoted, mounting a shaggy Garon. But all call it fire, and fire burns where it wills. He rode north, banner rippling like distant aurora. Visenya watched him depart. Mercy again, she murmured. An anvil, Aegon said. Every act of mercy hammers raw metal into shape. Rhaenys added, but each act of wrath is the forge. We must temper both. They resumed march. The Red Fork rendezvous dawned beneath a low blanket of river fog so thick it muted color and sound alike. Horses snorted white plumes into the smothered air. Aegon stood upon a flat promontory ringed by reed tufts. His sisters at either side, each wearing travel leathers dyed in house colors. Crimson and black for Rhaenys, midnight blue and smoke for Visenya. Above the mist, dragons could be heard rather than seen, their wing beats a slow, thunderous pulse echoing like a second heartbeat of the world. Torrhen Stark arrived with 4 companions, none armored heavier than boiled leather. He walked, helmet under arm, great sword ice absent by deliberate choice. His thick black hair salted at temples, yet his stride held firmness of seasoned command. At a respectful distance he halted, raising open hands to show no concealed blade. Aegon stepped forward, mirroring honesty. Torrhen spoke first. "I have seen a field of fire, though winter keeps none such in the north. Maesters ride swift, ravens swifter. My people wonder if snow may smother dragon flame. I do not wish to test which will choke first." "Then bend the knee," Visenya said, her bluntness a cut in the damp air. Torrhen's gaze flicked over her, then rested on Aegon. "The north has knelt before storms, before winters, before hunger. Never before dragon. Yet Northmen remember not just old kings, but lost children, widowed wives, halls charred by southern ambitions. You offer mercy, they say. I would know its price." Aegon let the silence breathe, as one might let a wine breathe, to reveal deeper notes. "I offer the North its own laws. I will name you Warden of the North, answerable to the crown, but free to govern winter lands as you always have. No southern lords will claim your forests or tax your furs. In exchange, you will send men to the realm's defense when called, and your banners will fly my sigil above your own." "Done no one down thrower. And the faith of the Seven?" Torrhen asked. "We hold fast to old gods. The old gods may whisper beneath every heart tree. I will not silence them." Aegon's voice carried a pledge that sounded like warmth splitting ice. Torrhen drew a long breath. River fog swirled about them, ghosts of uncertain histories. He looked to Rhaenys, then to Visenya, then beyond, though the dragons were only rumor behind whiteness. Perhaps in that moment he weighed the fate of 2,000 Northmen against 2,000 years of northern pride. He knelt, bending knee upon damp grass. "Then I, Torrhen Stark, king in the north, here cast aside my crown and swear fealty to House Targaryen. From this day forth, the Starks shall rule the north as wardens, for as long as the stars wheel above." Aegon drew Blackfire, blade dim in milk-white fog, and lightly touched Torrhen's shoulder. "Rise, Lord of Winterfell. Rise, Warden of the North." Torrhen rose. The river's hush seemed to release a held breath. Fog parted for a fleeting instant, and distant silhouettes of dragons loomed before vanishing again. Visenya exhaled softly. Rhaenys smiled faint sunlight. That afternoon, Torrhen's retinue prepared to ride back, but he lingered by Aegon's fire. "There will be factions," he warned. "Not every bannerman will approve of kneeling without a fight. I may need your reassurance on northern soil. Balerion can cast a longer shadow than the wall itself," Aegon replied. "But let words ride first. If force is needed, it will come gently as snowfall. Heavy only in weight, not in flame." Damn. Torrhen accepted this, with the stoicism of men born beneath aurora skies, then mounted and vanished into the gray distance, leaving muddy hoofprints that filled swiftly with water. The north had knelt without sword drawn. Aegon stared across the river's swirling surface, imagining the shape of Westeros as puzzle pieces slotting into place. Only 2 territories remained unbound. The Vale perched among sky-trimming peaks, and Dorne, coiled sand, serpent waiting to strike. Visenya brushed water droplets from her cloak. "The Vale next?" Rhaenys shook her head. "Queen Shara will delay until her falcons hatch new schemes. Let us turn south while their gates creak with caution. Dorne, if we leave it unresolved, will poison every caravan and every peace." Visenya's eyes gleamed. A lesson in fire long overdue. But Aegon's thoughts wove deeper, beyond immediate conquests. He saw dragons still healthy but aging. Merax's wings had begun to fray at the very edges, each molt slower than the last. He saw Balerion's heavy breaths after long flight. And he dreamed of a future where Targaryen rule would require more than 3 living weapons. It would need seedlings for tomorrow's sky, That night he summoned a trusted maester, Paris of Old Town, gifted in herbal lore and beasts. In a lamplit corner of a command tent, Aegon tasked him to search every ruin for surviving dragon eggs. Across Valyria's scattered outposts, inside collapsed towers along the narrow sea, within Conqueror's blacksmith vaults rumored to hold fragments of the old empire. Find them, Aegon ordered. The realm must never see an empty sky. Paros bowed, heart thumping at the enormity. Autumn's breath swept across the crownlands as the Targaryen host rode south. Leaves turned copper, matching the dragon's shimmering hides, when morning sun struck them aloft. News preceding them wore the joyous face of a world realigning, trade pacts signed with Lannisport's guilds, northern timber orders placed for new King's roadways, broadsheets in King's Landing proclaiming union and rebirth. Yet beneath celebration scurried rumor thin as blades. Whispers of faith militant cells reviving in the hinterlands, of Dornish sand ships gathering along the Broken Arm's rugged coast, of Cohoric sellswards sailing west with brazen promises to slay dragons for princes across the sea. At King's Landing itself, Aegon ordered the foundation for a new fortress to rise on Aegon's Hill, the Red Keep. Its walls to be built with fused stone and secret passages, known only to dragonkind blood. He left a cadre of architects, ordering them to quarry stone as hard as dragon bone. And he set Miles Mooton, a young knight whose courage had shone at Storm's End, as captain of the City Watch, charged with stamping out the thuggery that had flourished in wartime's wake. The host then swept along the Roserad toward Highgarden, where Mern Gardener's ashes still lay beneath charred fields, now sprouting cautious green. Aegon called a council of Reach Lords under a temporary pavilion. There, he placed Harlan Tyrell, steward of Highgarden who had flung open gates after his king's fall, as Lord Paramount of the manor, a pragmatic appointment that soothed lesser houses starving for stable overlordship. The Tyrells, green hand newly gilded by dragonfire, accepted with fervent gratitude, promising grain shipments to every war-scarred region. Another stone in the mosaic fell into place. But as triumphs mounted, Visenya's scouts returned from the Dornish marches bearing grim tidings. The sand road from Blackhaven to Yronwood now bristled with hidden caltrops forged of glass and obsidian. Wells were poisoned along the outskirts of the Prince's Pass. Tiny villages near the Boneway had been purposefully evacuated, every last clay hut booby-trapped with pitch. The Martells were crafting no open field of battle, but a corpse-strewn labyrinth. Rhaenys insisted on visiting Sunspear to bargain. Visenya argued fire would speak louder than honeyed words. Their debate simmered for 200 miles, from Ashford's apple orchards to the red sands near Hellhole. Aegon listened, occasionally intervening when sparks threatened to ignite more than conversation. Outside Blackhaven's battered curtain walls, he resolved the matter by dividing it. Rhaenys would fly first to Vaith under white flag, offering peace on terms similar to the North's, autonomy under nominal crown oversight. If she did not return within 10 days, Visenya would lead a punitive strike on Ronwood's frontier watchtowers to remind desert lords what unburnt castles looked like only in memory. Rhaenys prepared Miraxes with minimal gear, wearing light garb to ease desert flight. The morning she left, Aegon walked her to the dragon, palm brushing her cheek. If they raise arms, you rise higher. She kissed his thumb, smiled. They will look up and see wonder, not doom. Then she climbed the silver-white beast and soared southeast, trailing dust vortices across dawnlit sky. 8 days later, a single Dornish courier arrived under Parley flag, bearing a letter sealed with Sunspear broken in half. Within, Rhaenys' graceful script conveyed guarded optimism. Prince Nymor had received her pleasantly, but negotiations required extended stay. She requested more time and requested that the dragons hold still their fire. At letter's bottom beneath her name, she sketched a small star, their secret glyph meaning, "Trust me but stay wary." Visenya scoffed, yet sheathed impatience like a dagger kept close. Aegon studied the glyph. "She is safe for now," he said. But nights lengthened. Day 20 dawned with no second letter. Desert storms had swept the coasts. Ravens might be lost, Aegon reasoned. Yet concern gnawed. Visenya's restlessness hardened. On the 22nd sunrise, scouts brought word that Dornish firepots had been discovered buried near Nightsong, far north of expected lines. Sabotage creeping outward. Visenya snapped Dark Sister from its sheath. Enough waiting. Aegon met her gaze. They stood upon a cliff overlook above Prince's Pass, the wind carrying sand, grit into their hair. "A measured strike," he said. "I run Wood's towers first. We break their shield arm, not their heart." She mounted Vhagar, armor scaled like the dragon she rode. Balerion rumbled behind. Half eager, half weary, Aegon placed gloved hand upon black flank. "Guard the sky," he whispered. The assault began at dusk. Vhagar's flame bathed the watchtower of wailing dunes, melting stone parapets into twisted slag. Defenders scrambled, white cloaks of Yoronwood guards igniting like moth wings. Yet Aegon held Balerion higher, unleashing only brief sheets of fire, targeting storehouses, not adjacent villages. Fear, not annihilation, carved their path. But from a canyon mouth, ballista bolts shrieked upward. Wicked, barbed, their heads coated in strange bluish metal. One grazed Balerion's wing membrane, slicing a thin gash 7 feet long. Another struck Vhagar's flank, deflecting off scale with metallic scream, ricocheting into the sand. The dragons roared fury, but Aegon banked away, calling Visenya to withdraw. They climbed above cloud belts and vanished beyond the foothills, leaving panic but no bodies to mark victory. Aegon inspected Balerion's wound by torchlight. The tear bled little. Dragon's vessels closed swiftly, yet his hand trembled. He summoned smiths to study the recovered bolt. It bore inscription in unknown tongue, its tip laced with shimmering crystals. Maester Paros, now returned from his egg quest, identified fragments of frozen fire. A rare mineral mined near Ashai, rumored to split dragonscale easier than tempered steel. Dorne had spent richly to import such weapons. Visenya seethed. "They prepare to pierce our hearts, and we will answer," Aegon vowed. "But with caution. Rhaenys is still in their midst. Nay, if Dornish lords believed dragons mortal, they waged war of patience." For the first time since the conquest began, the Targaryen Ariel dynasty felt hairline fractures along its seemingly unbreakable armor. Months passed in wary stalemate. Autumn bled into winter's edge. High passes filled with snow, impassable even to dragon wings. Storms of razor sleet scarring flight paths. Rhaenys' letters arrived sporadically, often days old by delivery, each recounting incremental progress. Martell nobles debating water rights, smaller houses holding grudges over burned ancestors, yet children of Sunspear climbing Merax's talons and laughter. She described secret desert gardens where night-blooming jasmines filled dark with perfume, and a hall where aged tapestries depicted Rhoynar fleeing Valeria's wrath centuries prior. Refugees of Dragonflame who had survived by trust in sand and sea. She ended one missive. "They do not despise us for what we are. They fear becoming what they once fled. Speak to them of tomorrow, not of yesterday's ashes." Ben Sur. Meanwhile, Queen Shara Arryn accepted Aegon's invitation at last, meeting him in the half-rebuilt keep of Harrenhal. She arrived with her son Ronald and a small retinue. The boy's wonder at being lifted onto Visenya's saddle to ride Vhagar above gods eyes shattered his mother's last walls of resistance. Shara knelt before the dragons touched ground. Ronald proclaimed he would name his first hatchling Fierce Wing and ask it to guard the Eyrie. Aegon laughed and tapped the lad's shoulder with Blackfire, naming him Prince of the Mountain and Vale. With that, all 7 kingdoms, save Dorne, had bound themselves, and the realm's map now resembled a cloak clasped at every corner, save one stubborn pin. Yet Dorne's pin proved barbed. Sabotage raids struck garrisons in the marches, cutting supply chains, burning fodder stores. Dornish scouts used mirage screens to slip between patrols, sowing caltrops across King's roads, spraying venom on wells. Aegon responded with cavalry sweeps, sparing villages but torching hidden caches. Each action bred another retaliation. War by shadow. In midwinter, Word came that Rhaenys' return had been postponed by a sudden sandstorm that buried half of Sunspear's outer quarter. She assisted in excavation, Mirax's hauling rubble by claw. Aegon's heart ached with both pride and unease. The longer she remained, the deeper she bonded with those she bargained. Visenya observed one night, near the brazier, where they warmed hands against desert chill. She becomes Dornish in all but name, she said. She builds the peace we failed to burn, Aegon replied hoarsely. If her heart anchors there, it anchors our banner too. Visenya's expression softened by degrees. Just ensure it does not anchor too deep to fly back. Late winter sky stunned with improbable clarity on the day Rhaenys finally rode north. Mirax's shadow stretched like a sundial across dune crests, rippled by last night's wind. Behind, Sunspear's spear-shaped tower glinted, its copper cladding warming under desert sun. Crowds lined ramparts, brandishing silken scarves in swirling farewell. Rhaenys waved, her cloak shot with threads of Martell orange and Targaryen red interwoven. A new weave of alliance yet unratified. At Euronwood she paused, delivering sealed scrolls from Prince Nymor. Conditions for treaty. Aegon received them at Blackhaven 2 days later. They stipulated no occupation forces within Dorne, no dragon flights below the Greenblood without Martell escort. Trade free of crown tariffs for 3 years. Marriage alliance between Nymeria Sand, Nymor's niece, and a Targaryen of dragon seed lineage chosen by the crown, and a clause permitting Dornish princes to intercede should faith militant persecute followers of the Rhoynar way. Visenya scoffed at the list. They demand we clip our own wings. Aegon read each line thrice. They ask dignity, not dominion. And they offer desert gold, salt, silk, spices, access to stepstones, southern shipping lanes. Now, he placed the scroll aside. But they ask what may offend the faith, protection for Rhoynar custom. The High Septon will squeal. Let him, Visenya said. We have sheathed his squeal before. They rode to meet Rhaenys at Prince's Pass, where the dragons reunited in massive convergence, wings thrashing snow-flecked air into vortexes. She embraced Aegon, breath fragrant with sweet dates. They conferred long under a canvas pavilion warmed by braziers, each sister presenting argument, Rhaenys for acceptance, Visenya for caution. In the end, Aegon balanced sword upon words. We agree in principle, but let the treaty be signed upon Dragonstone, under equal banners, before witnesses of each realm. Let Dornish wolves see dragons, hold faith to parchment as to flame. Rhaenys smiled victory. Visenya conceded with tight nod. Ravens flew to Sunspear, to Old Town, to King's Landing. Preparations began for the greatest summit since Andal Landing, a conclave of kings and princes beneath volcanic towers of Dragonstone, the ancestral fortress of fire. Across narrow sea lanes, cogs ferried diplomats. The air reeked of salted hope, yet storms brewed. Peasant prophets predicted doom within fire gods. Zealots clamored outside septs chanting that 7 hells would swallow polygamous rulers. Faith militant chapters clandestine sharpened rusty blades once surrendered to bygone peace. And in the shadow markets of Tyrosh, exiled alchemists sold wildfire casks to suspicious cloaked buyers, speaking of the day dragons fall. In Dragonstone's great hall, where ancient carved pillars glinted with obsidian sheen, Aegon stood at long table, studying maps newly inked. Shipping roads spiraling outward like spider silk, each thread a lifeline of an empire unborn. His sisters flanked him, one embodying flame's gentleness, the other its wrath. Outside, 3 dragons slumbered upon cliff ledges dusted with ash from the Dragonmont's gentle exhalations. Valerion's huge chest rose and fell in echoing cadence. Mirax's stirred dreams under half-closed lids. Vihagar's tail flicked like a serpent-tasting storm. Aegon laid a single finger atop Dorna's etched outline. If this treaty holds, he mused, the realm will stretch from snows to sand without break, a single cloak of peace. Visenya touched the Norse depiction. Cloaks tear. Rhaenys rested her hand over both. Then we weave another layer. Children, roads, dragons yet unborn. Aegon met their eyes. In that triune gaze lay knowledge of the road ahead. Quell faith unrest, Unify currency? Seed new dragons? Quell pirate lords haunting stepstones? Forge maesters' codices into common tongue? Teach agriculture where war left fallow earth? The grand labor of ruling instead of conquering. But first, a treaty must be signed. A realm must see dragons not merely as blades of fire but quills of parchment. Aegon turned to greeting scribes and seneschals streaming in, readying seat arrangements for princes of many banners. In the courtyard below, a raven arrived, panting wings dusty. The note it bore Taroshi wax and single line, "Beware green fire." Aegon broke the seal and felt ice where there should be certainty. His sisters leaned in. "Alchemists," Visenya spat. "Wildfire." Rhaenys' brow furrowed. "Who would dare?" "Anyone who fears peace more than war," Aegon answered. He summoned Miles Mooten, now Lord Commander of the City Watch of King's Landing, instructing him to burn every rumored wildfire cache from Blackwater Rush to Flea Bottom. He dispatched gold cloaks to sweep ports, inspect barrels of pine resin. He alerted Tyrell grain fleets to sail wide of stepstones until summit ended. And he ordered dragon riders to patrol skies nightly, their eyes straining for flash of unnatural emerald. Within days, conspirators were seized. Gaunt men who confessed to peddling wildfire on behalf of unnamed Septon zealots, rival merchants hoping to ignite civil chaos and profit. A handful of desperate exiles once loyal to Gardener and Hoare. But Aegon sensed deeper currents still unsnagged by nets. As the date of assembly approached, Dragonstone thrummed with nervous energies. Trestles groaned under barrels of Dornish red and arbor gold. Cooks sweated over cauldrons of spiced goat. Quartermasters allocated chambers for lords who a year prior had lifted swords at one another's throats. Across volcanic crags, Balerion, Vagar, and Meraxes preened in shimmering daylight. Yet watchful, they seemed to sense the tension coiling beneath human skins. On the eve of the summit, Aegon walked alone to the Claw Isle overlook, where basalt columns thrust like black spears into foam-lashed sea. Stars burned crisp above, unblinking, as though they too awaited history's ink stroke. He breathed cold salt, tasting both promise and peril. Footsteps light as a dancer's heralded Rhaenys' arrival. She wrapped her fur about his shoulders, chin resting upon his arm. "I left a rose of Dorn on each guest's pillow," she murmured. "Let fragrance remind them of tomorrow we build." He smiled. "You build tomorrows from petals, I from stone, and Visenya from steel." They shared silence broken only by surf. When Visenya joined them, she did not speak at first. She looked upon the ocean with eyes catching starlight. Then, "I sharpened dark sister." She placed her hand on the hilt. "But I will leave it sheathed at the treaty table." Aegon nodded gratitude. Peace requires trust. Trust shears sharper than blades. They watched a dragon silhouette pass against moon. Huge, serene, a living constellation. Aegon felt weight upon his shoulders lighten with each wing beat. "When dawn comes," he whispered, "our reign will begin anew." Yet in the depths below Dragonstone, in tunnels carved by forgotten dragon lords, a different wing stirred. Rumor spoke of a clutch of eggs warmed by volcanic vents, pulsing amber veins through glossy shells. Maester Paras, by dim torch, knelt in awe before 3 such ovals nestled in obsidian sand. He extended trembling fingers, sensing heat that felt like unborn thunder. "At last," he breathed. New sky. Far above, unaware, Aegon murmured same in different tongue. New sky, of parchment, of roads, of peace. He imagined children of every kingdom waking beneath a banner that promised fairness instead of fear. He did not know wildfire casks hid within a stepstone's warehouse marked as Cohoric spices, their fuses braided with hair plucked from assassinated pyromancers. Nor that a zealot captain named Septon Saris had bribed a Taroshi smuggler to deliver them north on the morrow, timed with the treaty's conclusion. But he knew dragons would watch, and he trusted flame to reveal betrayal. Above, the moon hovered like an ancient, watchful eye. 3 dragons breathed slower, harmonizing with the tide. The world waited on razor's edge between ember and blossom, sword and handshake, darkness and dawn. Aegon Targaryen closed his eyes, listening to the sea chant, the only lullaby the Conqueror had ever known. The promise that waves will shape even obsidian into sand, given time. He vowed to grant his realm that time, no matter how many wings he must unfurl, no matter how many flames he must both stoke and quench. The night held its breath, and history prepared its pen. Ingay, Niki, Inz Kya. The rising sun turned Dragonstow's jagged silhouette blood red, the battlements aflame with light long before torches were quenched. Squires hurried along rain-slick causeways, brushing fresh rushes across flagstones and polishing door hinges until they gleamed like coins. Inside the great hall carved in the shape of a dragon's gullet, tables waited beneath vaulting ribs of obsidian, laden with pomegranates, smoked eels, and bread plats sugared with honey from the reach. The air smelled of salt and birth, of beginnings. Aegon stood before an embrasure that faced the narrow sea, watching sails gather on the horizon like white petals scattered by an unseen hand. Standard-bearers at the prow of each vessel raised crests into the wind. The trout of River Run, the sun and spear of Sunspear, the crowned stag of Storms and newly wed to the black stag banner of Orys and Argella, the green hand of Highgarden, and the golden line of Casterly Rock, curling around the three-headed dragon. Even the white falcon of the Vale swooped upon azure cloth. Though Shara Aaron traveled overland, only 3 banners were absent. The Faith Militant's 7-pointed star, outlawed by royal decree, the black bat of Heron, consigned to ash, and the crowned skull of the Stepstone's corsairs, yet prowling their shadowed waves. Balerion shifted on the cliff shelf, dislodging Luscri that skittered into the mist below. But Hagar loomed nearby, her bronze scales flashing green when they caught the early light. Meraxes preened her wing claws, shaking off dew. The dragons sensed the gathering pulse of destiny, even their breathing synchronized, as though 3 hearts had found one rhythm. Behind Aegon, courtiers rehearsed points of protocol in whispers, but he heard only the sea's patient hush. Visenya appeared at his elbow, hair braided back to expose the elegant scar that traced her jawline, a souvenir from a Lysine fencing master she had once bested. She tilted her head, studying ships through slit narrow eyes. "Their captains watch the sky while the sea bears them," she said. "Fear steers as much as tide. And hope," Aegon murmured. "Hope is fragile." She rested calloused fingers upon the pommel of Dark Sister. "Today we sign a treaty that must outlive dragons and kings alike. If it cracks, we mend it swiftly with steel. Or we temper it with mercy," he countered. That earned a thin smile. Rhaenys joined them, cloak snapping saffron and crimson in the gust. Desert beads tinkled from her earrings, gifts from Dornish children who had once feared her shadow. She pressed a scroll into Aegon's hand. A final copy of the treaty, ink still wet in spots where the pen had paused to dip. Prince Nymer's steward doubled the run of Rhoynish script beside the common. "He says every Dornishman must see his own tongue." "Mater." "Then let every Northman see runes," Aegon said. "Every Ironborn see scratched knots. Our law will be read in any shape men fashion truth." He sealed the idea in his mind for later, but the hour tolled. Bells forged from Blackwater iron rang from the tower, their note low yet carrying. Delegations filed across the courtyard beneath scaled archways. High Septon Tommen had refused attendance, citing infirmities that suspiciously aligned with his fear of polygamous monarchs. In his stead came Septon Osmond of Maidenpool, placid and golden-voiced, ready to bless without binding. Lords and ladies bowed as they crossed the threshold, shapes dwarfed by the ribbed cavern. Torches caught armor and jewels, sending rivulets of color to dance across black stone. At a high table, Aegon took the center chair, fused from volcanic basalt and wrought with serpentine inlay, his sisters flanking, 2 blades of chiaroscuro. Orys entered with Argella on his arm. She wore storm steel mail beneath a gown of deep blue silk. When she bowed, her crown of antlers clicked softly against the floor in heraldic salute. Torrhen Stark arrived wrapped in wolf furs despite the hall's latent heat. Beside him marched Brandon Snow, face neutral but gaze constantly roaming for signs of treachery. Lauren Lannister followed, resplendent in crimson velvet, though each pace suggested cautious admiration rather than pride. Last came Prince Nemor Martell, and his niece Nymeria Sand, both clad in desert whites, veiled with translucent gold gauze, to ward chill sea air. The herald struck his staff thrice. Silence feathered down. Aegon rose, Blackfire resting sheathed at his hip. "We gather as enemies once sundered," he said, voice carrying to the furthest eaves. "Today, we bind our fates with ink rather than blood, with vows rather than fear. Let this charter be witness that war has shaped us, but peace shall shape our children." Septon Osmond stepped forward, hands folded inside voluminous sleeves. His blessing was short, a prayer that the seven watched dragon and stag, wolf and lion, sun and spear, and mend the earth where fire had cracked it. As he retreated, scribes unrolled the parchment across a long trestle. Quills waited in crystal vials of maester mixed ink, one for each signatory, their nibs cut from swan feathers, save for the dragon's, which was a single black scale of Valyrian, mounted on golden shaft. Aegon signed first, the arc of Valyrian glyphs flowing like smoke. Rhaenys added her name in Rhoynish swirl. Visenya wrote with crisp, narrow strokes. One by one the others followed. Orys, Loren, Torren, Harlan Tyrell as Lord of the Reach, Shara Aaron, and finally Nymor Martell. Each signature felt like a breath in a glass-blower's pipe, expanding the fragile vessel of peace. Yet even as ink dried, a tremor raced through the floor. Not the gentle tremor of Dragonmon's steady growl, but a jolt that rattled platters and set diners gripping cups. Somewhere beyond the great doors came the muffled thunder of tumbling stone. Murmurs rose. Visenya's hand flew to sword. Aegon crossed the dais. "Hold your seats," he commanded, but his eyes mirrored unease. Another tremor shivered the hall. Dust trickled from the vaulted seams. A page sprinted across the threshold, face blanched. "Your Grace." Explosions in the lower baths. The east sallyport breached. Orys swore, pushing back his chair. Namor's brow pinched, suspicion flickering. Aegon gestured to Rhaenys. "See to the dragons. To Visenya. With me." They strode from the hall, capes whipping. Courtiers stumbled aside. Cool corridors funneled into stone staircases spiraling downward. Torches bending as air sucked inward like a giant intake of breath. The acrid sting of wildfire prickled nostrils long before green glow stained the gloom. At the archway to the baths, steam roiled with green fire, licking wet stone. Cracks spider-webbed across floor tiles, molten glass pooling where mosaic once depicted a Valyrian triumph. Pyromancer jars had shattered, releasing dragon's breath flame that burned water as readily as air. Visenya shouted orders to panicked guards. "Sand, not water. Smother it with broken tile. Ash sacks. Move." Men rushed. Aegon vaulted debris and found Maester Paros staggering against a pillar, singed but alive. At the maester's feet lay two smoldering crates branded with Taroshi hook sigils, the same mark from the warning raven. One crate lay empty, the other cracked but unlit. Aegon knelt, scanning for fuses. He spotted a charred coil leading up a narrow ventilation shaft. The saboteur had planned sequential blasts along tunnels honeycombing dragonstone. From above came Balerion's roar, rising like an organ chord. Rhaenys must have loosed the dragons. Their presence would deter further attacks, but they could not douse wildfire here within the keep. Aegon hauled Paros upright. "How many eggs?" "3. Intact, below." Paros coughed smoke. "If fire reaches incubation chamber." Aegon's blood surged cold. Those eggs were tomorrow's sky. He pushed deeper, heat blistering exposed skin. Smoke layers curled like dark parchment, but the passage beyond dipped lower, moisture from natural springs, turning floor slick. Flames clung to vaulted corners, spitting emerald fragments. At a fork, two knights fought back, creeping tongues with shovels of rubble. They parted for the king. Stone corridor bent into a cavern lit only by dim lanterns and the glow of 3 massive eggs resting on black sand. Heat here was sweltering but stable. Trickling mineral water from the ceiling cooled edges where fire might otherwise take hold. But a figure in hooded robe knelt at the clutch, working frantically at a fuse, leading into a small ceramic bomb of wildfire. Sparks danced at his flint. Aegon drew Blackfire in a blur, steel ringing against sulphurous roar. The saboteur turned, eyes wide, thin man, cheeks carved by zealotry. He lunged with dagger, but Aegon's blade flowed like starlight, severing wrist from arm. The bomb clattered. Fuse hissed half-lit. Aegon kicked it into a pool where mineral water hissed, extinguishing spark in plume of foul steam. Visenya arrived behind him, detaching a second conspirator with brutal efficiency. Dark Sister through the clavicle. She planted boot upon the corpse, yanking blade free. More. Fuses along air shafts, Aegon replied, pressing saboteur to floor with Blackfire's point at his throat. Who sends you? Blood bubbled at the zealot's wrist. He laughed, red sputtering. A god with 7 faces. He coughed. Peace is sin. Dragons are sin. Burn the sinners, burn the world. Light of the 7 cleanse. Blackfire silenced the final syllable, sliding home with grim finality. Aegon stared at the lifeless zealot, then at the egg's pulsing amber veins. He exhaled smoke-rough voice. They target hope. Then ensure hope learns to roar, Visenya said. They extinguished remaining sparks with wetted cloaks, dragging debris to smother any embers. Maester Paros arrived bearing sand buckets, relief sagging him when he saw eggs intact. I will move them, he said, but Aegon shook head. They stay. Guard them with every breath. Post ravens, we were attacked by extremists, but treaty stands. Visenya frowned. Some lords may view this as sign the gods' object. Then I shall preach louder than their fears. Together, they returned to Greater Hall. Courtiers stood in clusters, hushed arguments brewing. When Aegon strode across threshold streaked with soot, murmurs died. He climbed dais, unsheathed Blackfire, though blade still stained from zealot's blood. Traitors have spilled fear into these stones, he declared. Yet stone endures. Wildfire burns hot, but dragons burn hotter. This treaty is signed in our names, and now sealed by the blood of those who oppose peace. Any who still call for war will taste their own ashes. He lifted the parchment high. This day, the 7 kingdoms stand as one realm. Let no fanatic ignite division. He handed scroll to Septon Osmond, who, pale but resolute, raised it aloft. Oris slammed fist to chest in salute. Torrhen Stark tipped Wolfhead helm. Loren Lannister called, "Hear him?" Soon echoed by Tyrell baritones. Even Shara Arryn, wide-eyed at soot upon the king's cheek, dipped head in grave respect. Only Prince Nemor watched keenly, as if measuring conflagrations yet unseen. Then he bowed, slow and deliberate. Dorne remains. Aegon inclined in return. And we remain with you. The feast recommenced, though tension lingered like iron filings in air. Rhaenys arrived late, cheeks wind-pink from soothing Meraxes. She found Aegon's hand beneath table, laced fingers. They will keep trying, she whispered. Then we keep building, he answered. Foundation thicker than any flame. Days bled into months. Reconstruction across Crownlands consumed coffers, roads paved with riverstone. Watchtowers crowned by weather vanes shaped as coiled dragons, aqueducts spanning valleys raised by war. Loren dispatched wagons of gold and builders to aid. Harlan Tyrell sent grain convoys north, earning cheers in wintering villages. Torrhen organized giants of the Northwoods to fell oaks for shipyards near King's Landing. Faith unrest smoldered. Septon Serres vanished from Stepstone's warehouse before gold cloaks could seize him. Rumor placed him aboard a Lysine trireme headed to Mire, preaching crusade against heresy. Aegon offered price on his head, but seas are wide. Still, each fanatical sermon that reached shore found fewer listeners. Famine eased, trade returned. Children saw dragons overhead not as omens but as guardians. Within Dragonstone, eggs were moved to a stone cradle beneath glass-paneled dome, where sunlight warmed them by day and volcanic vents breathed heat by night. Rhaenys visited often, humming Valyrian lullabies. On one visit she found Paros smiling. He held up a cracked shell piece, ivory fringed with pink fire lines. The first egg had begun to quicken. Heartbeat, he whispered. Soft, but strong. Rhaenys pressed ear to egg. A distant drum responded, faint yet certain. Tears filmed her eyes. She rose, rushing to find Aegon. Together they stood before the clutch, Visenya joining uninvited, though no one would have barred her. They placed hands upon warm shells, feeling life stir. That night they dined in solar washed by moonlight. Plans unspooled. A dragon hatchery outside King's Landing upon bluff of distant antlers. A school for riders drawn from every noble house, so each kingdom bore witness to sky. A code of dragon law to govern proper use of flame. And never against civilian hamlets, never without royal writ. Visenya added clauses of defense, Rhaenys of diplomacy, Aegon of stewardship. They named the nascent code Dracarys Peace. Irony acknowledged but cherished. Fire used not to raise, but to vow restraint. From across the narrow sea, envoys arrived bearing tribute. Bravosi cedar chests stacked with purple dye. Norvoshi masks hammered of copper shaped like sorrowful lions. Even Volantine magisters, once whispering rebellion, now offered libraries of Valyrian scrolls, rescued from the doom. Aegon accepted gifts, but his eyes lingered on scrolls. Knowledge to seed governance deeper than swords. One evening he unrolled a charred fragment depicting symmetrical city plan, etched in ash ink. Avenues fanning from central spire like dragon wings. It was blueprint of old Valyria's heart district. He traced lines with reverence and dread. The doom had devoured such grandeur. Could Westeros avoid same hubris? He vowed to build not monuments to pride, but arteries of resilience. Rhaenys found him later, seated before Parchment Sea. She folded herself beside him. What wait this night? Vision, he said. How to craft empire without forging chains around necks. Empires are chains, she answered softly. Then let ours be silk, he said. Strong but gentle. Silk can strangle. Visenya muttered from doorway. Unity was her wine. Caution her water. Yet she joined them at map, finger-tapping nodes where new roads might link holdfasts to grain hubs, where beacons on hilltops could flash warnings faster than ravens. Silk and steel, she amended. Braid them. Aegon smiled. Draconic braid. So be it. Spring budded early. Plum blossoms drifted across streets of King's Landing as masons laid first foundation stones for the Red Keep. In the courtyard below, Miles Mooton drilled recruits, their shields stamped with Triskelion of interlocking dragons. One black, one bronze, one silver, symbolizing 3 riders who tamed war into peace. Children chased petals swirling like snow. Vendors hawked lemon cakes at half price to celebrate new tax reliefs. In the throne room, carved from blackwood scaffolds, Aegon received delegations petitioning for charters. Guilds of lens grinders, healers seeking showings of Valyrian surgical secrets. Septas requesting funds to rebuild burned sceptries. He granted, he denied, he compromised, until parchment stacked high as his forearm. When dust-painted windows rose red, he left governance to council and strode toward the rookery. A raven awaited. Seal of Old Town. Breaking wax, he read, High Septon Tommen willing at last to travel north for coronation, provided polygamous union remain unspoken. He would bless unity for sake of souls. Aegon chuckled. Souls saved by silence. On parapet he found Rhaenys and Visenya watching dragons spiral above bay, training flights with young squires strapped behind saddles. The squires whooped, laughter mingling with updraft roars. One squire lost grip. Meraxes dipped, nudging him back with snout. Rhaenys beamed pride. Visenya corrected posture of another with curt shout echoing skyward. Aegon joined, slipping arms around both. A coronation looms. I imagined you already crowned, Rhaenys teased. Faith's crown, not dragons, he replied. Let the High Septon place crystal upon my head. Maybe then zealots think twice before lighting fuses. Visenya grunted. Let him come, but your wives will stand beside you, whether he clamps his tongue or swallows it. Aegon agreed. Night descended, stars pricking velvet. In Dragonstone's hatchery, the first egg split fully. A hatchling tumbled into warm sand, sleek onyx scales, wings dappled with starlight flecks. It squeaked, nosed shell shards, then flung head back with miniature roar. Peros wept. He summoned pages, who ran. Soon Aegon and his queens arrive, hearts tripping. The hatchling wobbled toward them, heat shimmering from tiny body. Aegon knelt, careful. "Welcome," he whispered in liquid Valyrian. The hatchling chirruped, brushing muzzle against his palm. Rhaenys clapped in delight. Visenia's stern facade cracked into a smile soft as dawn. "What name?" Rhaenys asked. "Syrinx," Aegon said, after a star that guided lost mariners off Valyrian coast. He lifted hatchling, talons delightful pinpricks, on leather cuffs. The creature's flame, when it sneezed, was little more than candle flicker, yet potential blazed brighter than wildfire. All three felt it, a new beginning tethered to fragile bones. High above bay, Balerion boomed thunderous approval. Ancient father blessing, newborn scion taught die. Summer matured. Crops ripened thick in fields once scorched. Sell-sale incomes plummeted. Stepstone's pirates found fewer buyers for stolen cargoes. In secret coves, Septon Cerys conspired with Myrish alchemists, but his letters begged coin. Peace-starved war's merchants. The gods might wield 7 faces, but hunger wore only one. Hollow. At King's Landing, Faith Militia attempted coup during Coronation's Eve. 50 zealots scaling scaffolding, with flasks of lamp oil, meant for benches where lords would sit. Spotted by a young stablehand, they were seized. Aegon chose not execution but exile, to far northern watchposts manned by Torrhen's men. Zealots met winter, and found piety tested by cold. The coronation unfolded beneath sky clear as polished glass. High Septon Tommen, pale yet resolute, placed crystal crown upon Aegon's brow. He avoided glancing at both queens, but the crowd's cheers drowned his discomfort. When trumpets blared, Miraxes and Vhagar soared across sun, leaving contrails of flame shaped like interlocking rings. Balerion waited until last, then swept above Red Keep's skeleton frame, shadow eclipsing city. The roar that followed shook bells free of tower frames. King's Landing answered with thunder of its own. In that roar, fears melted. People poured wine into gutters in celebration, mixing with rose petals strewn from balconies. Market stalls gave twice the bread for half the price. Tales would claim dragons danced that day. Though dragons do not dance, they command. Night fell. Fireworks, borrowed from Meaty artisans, streaked sky in colors even dragons could not mimic. Amid festival smoke, Syrinx took first clumsy glide from Dragonstone's rampart, landing atop mead barrel on quay and startling fishermen. Laughter echoed. The age of conquest had ended. The age of renewal spread wings. Aegon watched from balcony beside his queens. Firelight painted their faces bronze. Below, minstrels played, turning war ballads into lullabies. He spoke quiet. "We have built a tide. See that it never recedes." Rhaenys leaned into him. "It will flow so long as we cherish smallest waves." Visenia's hand rested on Dark Sister, but her eyes softened. And guard against undertow. Years would pass. Children would be born of dragons and men. Roads would bind coasts. Knowledge would cross frontiers once barred by fear. Fanatics would still murmur. Pirates still raid. Winters still descend. But each challenge would find answer in Unity's forging, the braid of silk and steel and fire. For now, tower bells tolled. Not warning but celebration. Aegon Targaryen, Conqueror, King of all Westeros, Lord of a sky unbroken, closed his eyes. He listened to dragons breathing, to distant waves caressing shores, to a newborn kingdom's heartbeat growing steady, stronger than wildfire, gentler than dawn.